Hanuman touched the top of Menaka mountain as a token of respect and then soared upwards, continuing his flight. Being pleased, Indra came forward and told Menaka, "There is no more need of you to be afraid of my thunderbolt. You may keep your wings and travel as you wish." Meanwhile, the celestial rishis, demigods, and Gandharvas approached Surasa, the mother of the Nagas, requesting, "We would like to ascertain the real strength of Hanuman. Thus, we wish to assume the form of a huge Rakshasi and try to impede him. Either Hanuman will quickly defeat you, or he will give way to despondency. Taking the form of a huge disfigured Rakshasi as large as a mountain, Surasa suddenly emerged from the ocean, blocking Hanuman's path. She announced, "By the benediction of Lord Brahma, it has been ordained that I can eat whatever food comes before me. O best of the monkeys, by the will of Providence, you have crossed my path. Now I will now I invite you to enter my gaping mouth." Hanuman replied, "I am trying to serve Lord Rama by locating his kidnapped wife, Sita, and you should assist me. However, if you are determined to devour me instead, then after finding Sita and reporting back to Rama, I shall return here and enter your mouth without fail." Surasa retorted, "O impudent one, because of Lord Brahma's benediction, you will be forced to enter my mouth now." Then Surasa opened her mouth 10 yojanas wide to block Hanuman's path. Then Hanuman expanded his body to 10 yojanas and challenged, "You will have to enlarge your mouth more if you want me to enter it." Surasa then expanded her mouth to 20 yojanas, and the infuriated Harumana expanded it to 30 yojanas. Surasa countered by making her mouth 40 yojanas, and in response, Hanuman expanded himself to 50 yojanas. Surasa then expanded her mouth to 60 yojanas, and Hanuman enlarged himself to 70. She then expanded herself to 80 yojanas, and Hanuman grew to 90. Countering the Surasa's expanded countering this, Surasa expanded her mouth to gaping 100 yojanas wide. Then, in the twinkling of an eye, Hanuman shrank to the size of a thumb and quickly darted in and out of her mouth, saying, "O daughter of Daksha, the condition of your benediction has now been fulfilled, and I shall continue on my journey." Surasa was delighted with Hanuman's clever victory. She then appeared before him in her original form, saying, "Well done, O foremost of monkeys! Go now and accomplish your mission. May you soon unite Sita and Lord Rama." Hanuman continued on his way, soaring through the sky. Suddenly, a Rakshasi woman named Simhika grabbed onto his shadow. Unaware of what had happened, Hanuman first thought he was losing his strength. However, upon looking around, he saw a huge, ghastly creature emerging from the sea. As Simhika rushed toward Hanuman, her mouth opened wide. Hanuman began to expand his body. However, the sharp witted Hanuman realized that the onrushing Rakshasi's mouth was still large enough to swallow him. Thus, reversing his previous strategy, Hanuman suddenly shrank himself to tiny proportion. He then entered the Rakshasi's mouth and plunged into her hideous body. Using his sharp claws, Hanuman proceeded to tear the Rakshasi's heart to pieces. Then he came out of her body and reassumed his expanded size. As Simhika fell down dead into the water, the Siddhas, Charanas, and Vidharas glorified Hanuman for his victory. Soon thereafter, the beaches and forests on the distant shore of Lanka came into view. Thinking the Rakshasas would spot him, Hanuman resumed his normal size and landed on a crag of Trikuta, the main mountain on the island of Lanka. Even after his jump of 100 yojanas, Hanuman did not feel even slightly tired. Gazing upward, he beheld the wonderful city of Lanka, perching atop the Trikuta mountain, surrounded by moats filled with lotus flowers. The city was encircled by a high golden wall that was heavily guarded by fierce Rakshasas. As Hanuman approached the northern gate of Lanka, he saw towering white palaces and broad avenues adorned with golden arches, all crowded with innumerable fierce, ugly Rakshasas armed with all manner of weapons and able to change their forms at will. Hanuman thought to himself, this city appears to be unconquerable, even by the demigods, what to speak of an army of monkeys. How can Rama hope to vanquish the Rakshasas, since only myself, Sugriva, Neela, and Angada can cross the ocean to come here? Regardless, my first duty is to find out if Sita is alive. I must carefully consider how I can meet her, for incompetent messengers sometimes spoil even the best plans. The guards appear to be extremely vigilant, therefore, I cannot try to enter in my natural form. It appears that not even the wind could enter Lanka undetected. I must assume some inconspicuous guise and enter the city at night. Hanuman eagerly waited for the sun to set, and when it finally grew dark, he became as small as a cat and entered Lanka by jumping over the high wall. Hanuman saw that the city was beyond his imagination, full of 7 and 8 story palaces that were lavishly adorned with gold and jewels. The entire city was filled with magnificent houses with windows of diamond studded lattice. Inside were beautiful women, and the sounds of laughter and sweet music could be heard. Throughout the city, Rakshasa Brahmanas chanted Vedic hymns praying for Ravana's protection. The moon then rose above the horizon, thus helping Hanumana by spreading its silvery illumination. At that time, Lanka, personified in the form of hideous Rakshasi women, came before Hanuman, challenging, how have you entered this city unchecked? What is a monkey like you doing in the kingdom of the Rakshasas? Hanuman responded, I will only answer your question after you tell me who you are. The Rakshi then angrily replied, I am the presiding deity of Lanka. I carefully guard this city on behalf of Ravana. Because you have entered here without permission, you shall meet your death today by my hands. Hanuman said, I have come here to take a tour of the city, for I desire to see all the magnificent gardens and palaces. Lanka defiantly replied, this city is inhabited only by Rakshasas. No stray monkeys are allowed to roam the streets. If you want to view the opulence of Lanka, you will have to kill me first. To this, Hanuman declared, I will look at the city as much as I like and depart the same way I entered. The enraged Lanka shouted, you will not, and struck Hanuman with the palm of her left hand. Hanuman roared loudly with indignation and struck Lanka with his left fist, although not violently, because she was a woman. Lanka fell to the ground, moaning in pain, begging, please spare me, for a true hero will never strike a woman. Once, long ago, Lord Brahma told me, when you are overpowered by a monkey, the destruction of your city and all the Rakshasas is imminent. I therefore admit defeat, for I can understand uh, that Ravana's death is at hand. O monkey, you have my permission to enter Lanka. Hanuman quickly traversed the entire city, jumping from one rooftop to the next. He detected many spies in various disguises. He also saw an army of 1 lakh Rakshasas protecting Ravana's palace, which was completely encircled by thick walls made of gold. As Hanuman searched for Sita throughout Lanka, he beheld great palaces with jewel inlaid doors. The walls within were dust free and as clear as crystal. The floors were laid out in fascinating designs. Filigreed stairways inlaid with gold and silver led to balconies, and above them were magnificent domes and ceilings. Musical instruments played as the wives of the Rakshasas came and reclined in the arms of their amorous husbands. Um, as he entered one residence after another, Hanuman saw lovers caressing each other, while other women applied sandalwood paste to their bodies. Here someone slept, here someone slept, there someone laughed, while others engaged in the affairs of love making. Someone was sprawled out naked, having been left aside by her husband, and someone else, decorated with flowers and ornaments, was just welcoming her lover. In this way, Hanuman observed thousands of beautiful women with moon like faces, their lotus petal eyes casting sidelong glances that beguiled the hearts of their loved ones. However, as soon as However, as there was no trace of Sita, Hanuman became somewhat disheartened. Hanuman decided to search throughout the palaces belonging to Ravana's relatives and consorts. From a distance, these residences appeared to be like enormous clusters of monsoon clouds, illuminated by streaks of lightning. From a distance, after searching through many wonderfully opulent homes, Hanuman entered the palace of Ravana, which was filled with beautiful women and the sound of tinkling ornaments. Indeed, Hanuman felt as though he were being carried across the sky in a celestial chariot pulled by white swans. The interior of Ravana's palace was a ravishing paradise, with wish-fulfilling trees surrounded by jewel-like flowers. While roaming about, Hanuman saw many pleasure rooms, their floor wet from wine and liquor. There were rooms filled with all varieties of weapons and rooms filled with treasure. However, to Hanuman's disappointment, Sita was nowhere to be seen. But he had not yet searched Ravana's personal quarters, which alone were 4 miles wide and 8 miles long. As Hanuman wandered throughout Ravana's vast domain, he considered how to enter the apartments. Finally, he came to the room where the Pushpak chariot was being kept. This chariot was originally built by Vishwakarma for Lord Brahma and could traverse the sky simply by following the mental indication of the driver. The Pushpak chariot hovered above the floor and was adorned with birds made from jewels that flapped their wings mechanically, sorry, and with snakes made of silver and gold. Inside were artificial elephants with sharply trunks that showered scented water upon a carved statue of the goddess of fortune. Lakshmi, who stood elegantly within a pool of water, a lotus flower in each of her 4 lovely hands. The Pushpak chariot appeared like a large floating hill and was fitted with stairways of gold, white crystal floors, and balconies made from sapphires. To get a good look at Ravana's inner apartments, Hanuman jumped up onto the Pushpak chariot. From that vantage point, he could see a great hall with a crystal floor that was inlaid with pearls, diamonds, and gold, and covered by a great carpet having the geography of the earth, with all its mountains and seas as its design. Stairways made of gems led to the levels, and everything was softly illuminated by golden lamps, whose light reflected upon countless valuable jewels. Everything about this spectacular hall was gratifying to the 5 senses. Thus Hanuman began to wonder, where am I? Is this heaven? This could well be the supreme realm of Lord Brahma. Upon entering the inner quarters, Hanuman saw thousands of beautiful, colorfully dressed women sprawled upon the expansive carpet. With half of the night gone, they were fast asleep under the influence of intoxicating wines and the exhaustion from their amorous revels. The women's jeweled bracelets, belts, and ankle bells were now silent, although sparkling, and thus appeared like lotus lakes, serene, with silent swans and sleeping bees. Hanuman gazed upon the ladies who lay with eyes closed and lips tightly shut, like fragrant lotuses that close their petals upon the arrival of evening. In their stupor, the ladies' hair had become dishevelled and their jewels scattered, while dancing and drinking their ankle bracelets had been misplaced, their marks of tilaka erased, and their necklaces broken. Their belts were loosened, their dresses wrinkled, and their garlands torn and trampled. They appeared like flowering creepers that had been crushed by elephants. Some of the ladies slept, using their bracelet adorned arms as pillows, while others reposed on the breasts of their co-wives. Still others rested their heads upon another's lap, stomach, or buttocks. Still others, captured in love's intoxication, relaxed with arms interclasped, embracing each other as they slept. Seeing this scene, Hanuman wondered, whose limbs are those? Whose garlands? Whose clothes? Whose ornaments? Indeed, the concerts of Ravana were so intimately united in sleep that it was difficult to know who was who, but not whom they served. Under the influence of lust, innumerable daughters of kings, Brahmanas, Daityas, and Gandharvas had become the wives of Ravana. Ravana had kidnapped some of them after defeating their relatives, but all had accepted him willingly under the infatuation of desire. None were low-born, ugly, crude, or stupid, and none were neglected by Ravana, Lord of Lanka. Hare Krishna. So I will request some devotee Prabhu, maybe Shiv Kumar Prabhu. You can continue reading.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Please.
Okay, I'll continue Prabhu. In their midst, Hanuman saw Ravana lying asleep upon an elegant silken couch placed atop a crystal dais and covered with a white canopy that was decorated with flowers. Ravana was seen to have one head and two arms, for it was only in battle that he assumed his gigantic form with 10 heads and 20 arms. Hanuman also noticed the numerous wounds upon Ravana's body coming from such illustrious weapons as King Indra's thunderbolt, Airavata's tusk, and Lord Vishnu's chakra. Ravana's dark-complexioned body was smeared with sandalwood paste. His earrings flashed like fire as he lay exhausted from a night of feasting, drinking, and erotic enjoyment. Hanuman stared at Ravana respectfully, recoiling slightly in awe of his powerful, majestic appearance. Then Hanuman again turned his attention to Ravana's consorts, who surrounded him like so many glittering stars encircling the full moon. Several were sleeping in the arms of their beloved lord, while others caressed the musical instruments they had played earlier in the evening. Like a lotus clinging to a floating tree branch in midstream, one slender-waisted beauty embraced her veena. Another held a drum in her lap as if it were her infant child. Another full-breasted lady hugged her tambourine tightly, as though it was her lover that had returned from a long absence. Lying a bit apart from the rest of the women on a lavishly decorated couch was the fair-complexioned Mandodari, Ravana's favorite. When Hanuman saw how young, beautiful, and dignified she appeared, he thought, "This must be Sita." Feeling overjoyed at his discovery, Hanuman rejoiced like a monkey by slapping his arms, jumping for joy, kissing his tail, and climbing up and down the palace pillars. However, after a moment's consideration, Hanuman concluded this cannot be Sita. It must be someone else. Sita would not be able to even eat or sleep in separation from Rama, nor would she decorate herself nicely or accept the association of another male even if he were the king of heaven. Indeed, in comparison to Rama, what are the demigods? Not to speak of a wicked Rakshasa like Ravana. Thereafter, Hanuman continued his search, wandering from room to room throughout the rest of Ravana's palace. He saw thousands of moon-faced women sleeping amidst vessels containing huge quantities of meat and wine, along with drinking glasses that were scattered about. Hanuman had to observe all these women very closely while searching for Sita, and thus began to have misgivings. Hanuman thought to himself, "Perhaps I have violated religious principles by gazing upon the wives of others sleeping in a state of undress. What will be my destination?" However, after some consideration, Hanuman concluded, "It is the motive that determines if an act is virtuous or sinful. While gazing upon these women, I have remained pure in mind, for my only concern is to find Sita. Since I am looking for a woman, where else can I search except among women? I am only doing this in the service of Lord Rama. Therefore, my looking upon others' wives cannot be sinful." When Hanuman had completed his search of Ravana's palace without finding a trace of Sita, he concluded that she must no longer be alive. Hanuman became saddened at heart. He wondered what he would tell the other monkeys who were anxiously awaiting his return. However, Hanuman fought his depression by reminding himself that unwavering determination is the only cause for success. Still hoping for the best, he continued to search the places that remained uncovered. But after scouring Lanka again and again, Hanuman became completely disheartened. Although Sampati had assured him that Sita was in Lanka, Hanuman could not find her anywhere. He began to speculate about what might have happened. Perhaps Sita died out of fear while being carried to Lanka by Ravana. Perhaps he dropped her out of fear of Rama. Sita might have wriggled free and fallen into the ocean, or perhaps Ravana devoured her when she refused to become his consort. Hanuman's thoughts then turned to the disastrous results that would ensue if he were to return to Rama and report his failure. Without Sita, Rama will surely give up his life, and Lakshmana will follow suit. When Bharata and Shatrughna hear that Rama and Lakshmana have died, they will also end their lives. With all four sons gone, the three mothers will certainly wither away, and because of their failure, Sugriva, Angada, and other monkeys will give up their lives out of shame. Therefore, I must not return to Kishkindhya. Either I will commit suicide or live out the rest of my life as a recluse. As Hanuman struggled to emerge from these gloomy thoughts, he considered, maybe I should kill Ravana or drag him back to Rama so that he can be offered as a human sacrifice to Lord Shiva. Seated upon one of Lanka's high defense walls, Hanuman suddenly spied a large grove of Ashoka trees on the outskirts of town that he had not yet explored. Hanuman resolved to continue his search. He first offered his obeisances to Rama, Lakshmana, principal demigods. Then he leapt from the defensive wall into the Ashoka grove. Hanuman roamed about within the grove for some time, and then climbed a tall tree to gain a better view. From the treetop, Hanuman could see a mountain stream cascading down into a nearby lotus pond. Surrounded by flowering trees, this idyllic garden seemed the perfect place for Sita. Hanuman decided to remain stationed in the treetop in the hope that Sita would come there to take her morning bath and perform her devotional duties. Gazing in another direction, Hanuman sighted a lofty temple supported by thousand pillars and situated within a nearby garden. In front of the temple sat a woman dressed in a single dirty, worn out, fine yellow cloth. She appeared emaciated from fasting, and because of her anguish, she sighed heavily again and again. Although her face was wet with tears, displaying her anxiety and exhaustion, she nonetheless shone with a divine radiance. Looking like a smoke covered fire, she was surrounded by many Rakshasas. Hanuman recognized her to be the woman he saw earlier being carried away by Ravana. Likewise, he detected that the ornaments she wore matched the description of those given by Rama. Hanuman gazed at the woman's full moon face, her graceful eyebrows, her full breasts, her bright red lips, her slender waist, her lotus petal eyes, her delicate symmetrical limbs, and concluded that she must be Sita. Although as lovely as the goddess of love, she sat upon the ground like an ascetic practicing penances. Appearing most glorious, she suffered acute anguish and thus appeared like a sacred text misinterpreted, like wealth squandered, like faith shattered, like hope frustrated, like ideals impeded, like intellect corrupted, or like fame blackened. Hanuman thought, this is the woman whom Rama loves and for whom he suffers, sometimes feeling pity, sometimes tenderness, and sometimes grief. Pity for the dear one whom he failed to protect, tenderness for the woman who is solely dependent upon him, and grief at suddenly losing his beloved wife. Sita's grace and beauty resemble that of Rama. She is certainly worth the trouble of jumping over to Lanka and killing all the Rakshasas. Indeed, if Sita were placed on one side of scale and the sovereignty of the three worlds on the other side, the latter would not measure even a fraction of her worth. It is painful to see how she suffers at the hands of Ravana. Still, I know that because of remaining absorbed in thoughts of Rama, she cannot perceive her external suffering. The moon rose to help Hanuman observe Sita and the dangerous Rakshasas guarding her. Some of the Rakshasas had only one eye on ear, one had ears all over her body, and another had a nose in the middle of her forehead. Some were bald and some were dwarfs, some were hunchbacks and some had lips that hung down to their chins. Some had heads that resembled boars, deer, camels, tigers, or horses. Others had only a single hand or foot. Other Rakshasas had heads that were sunk into their bodies, like Kabanda, and most had meat and blood smeared over their bodies. Hanuman wept tears of joy in finding Sita. Remaining concealed atop the Ashoka tree, he watched her as the night passed away. Ravana was awakened before dawn by the singing of the gods, who praised his glories to the accompaniment of musical instruments. As he arose, Ravana began to think of Sita, for he was irresistibly drawn to her. Unable to suppress his sensual longing for the princess of Videha, Ravana set out for the Ashoka grove, accompanied by 100 beautiful women carrying golden lamps, chamaras, cushions, water, and other paraphernalia. Still under the influence of the previous night's intoxication, Ravana staggered along, followed by the lovely ladies who appeared to be like flashes of lightning behind a cloud. When Hanuman saw Ravana approach, he concealed himself behind a cluster or leafy branches. When Sita saw Ravana coming, she covered her body as best she could. Then, trembling violently, she sat down and wept. As Sita sat upon the bare ground, she swayed back and forth like a frail boat tossing upon a stormy ocean. In her wretched condition, Sita appeared to be like an understanding that had become dim, hope that had been frustrated, an order flouted, or a sacred altar that has been desecrated. She was like a full moon in eclipse, an army that had been routed, or a stream dried up from drought. She was like a pond whose lotuses had been uprooted, an extinguished flame, or birds fleeing from fright. Sita's body had become emaciated, and her mind depressed from her fasting and grief. Ravana came before Sita and began speaking in the hope of seducing her. O most fair and beautiful lady, why do you cover your shapely breasts and thin waist? O large-eyed beauty, I am afflicted with love for you. So please give up your shyness. Favor me, my beloved, and fulfill my unbearable longing to have you. It has always been the custom of Rakshasas to carry away or rape the wives of others. However, I shall not touch you as long as you do not voluntarily agree to have me in return. O lovely goddess, why are you lying upon the bare ground? Why do you wear dirty clothes and fast for no reason? Why do you tie your hair in a single braid and constantly sit brooding? Such behavior does not suit a ravishing princess like you. Become my queen and enjoy royal opulence beyond compare within the three worlds. You will have only the best garments, sandalwood paste, perfumes, and ornaments. You shall eat the finest foods, drink the most ambrosial beverages, lie upon the most luxurious couches, and revel with music, singing, and dancing. O most lovely lady, youth quickly passes, therefore your stubbornness is folly. You have the loveliest face, fairer than the moon, and your bodily features are the perfection of artistic workmanship. Become my beloved, and in return I shall do anything for your pleasure. If you like, I shall conquer the entire earth and present it as a gift to your father, King Janaka. Who can dare to defy me? O Sita, after seeing you, I have become so enamored that I can no longer find pleasure in any of my wives, not even Mandodari. Why do you insist upon remaining faithful to Rama, a mere human being, a straw in the street in comparison to me? I doubt whether Rama still lives. Even if he does, you may rest assured you will never see him again. Sita placed a straw between herself and Ravana as a symbol of her unwillingness to contact him directly. She gently replied, you should withdraw your mind from me and remain contented with the consorts you already possess. You will never be able to possess me just as a sinful man fails to achieve perfection. I was born in a noble family and married according to religious principles. I will never act contrary to the tenets of righteousness. There is no hope of your gaining my favor. Turning her back on Ravana, Sita continued, because you are acting perversely, directing yourself away from the path of virtue, you will become the cause for the destruction of your entire kingdom. Why not follow the example of good men who protect their wives and the wives of others? The fool who is dissatisfied with his own wife and seeks pleasure with the wives of others is doomed. Why do you ignore the advice of the wise and reject that which is good? Why are you determined to cause the destruction of all the Rakshasas? Do you not know that everyone rejoices at the destruction of wicked persons? I'll never be tempted by your offers of insignificant opulence and royal comforts. I am an inseparable from Rama as the sunlight is from the sun. The only way that you can save yourself from Rama's wrath is to voluntarily deliver me back. You should try to make friendship with him, for he is very merciful to those who take shelter of him. Otherwise, it will not be long before Rama and Lakshmana come here and suck out your life breath with their arrows. You shall never escape Rama's vengeance, even though you may be capable of saving yourself from Indra's thunderbolt. It is only a matter of time before Rama finds you out and kills you for your wickedness. Ravana retorted, generally, the more courteously a man treats a woman, the more agreeably she responds to him. In your case, however, the opposite holds true. I should kill you for your harsh words. You are fortunate, however, because my love for you controls my anger like a charioteer that curbs unruly steeds. Love acts strangely, for the more a beloved mistreats her lover, the more he showers her with affection. It is for this reason alone that I do not kill you, although death and dishonor are what you deserve. Already 10 months of your 1 year grace period have passed. Thus I shall wait only 2 more months. Then, if you still refuse to reciprocate my love, I shall have you chopped to pieces by my cooks and served for my breakfast. Several of Ravana's consorts that had been forcibly abducted by him were also present there, and upon hearing his threats, they felt sympathetic towards Sita. As Ravana prepared to depart, they briefly comforted Sita, their compassionate words giving Sita some small reassurance. Thus, feeling encouraged, Sita again rebuked Ravana, saying, you cannot have a single well-wisher within your kingdom, for no one has tried to deter you from this ignoble act which is meant for your destruction. Rama is like a mighty elephant, and you are a tiny rabbit. You cannot speak boldly only while Rama is out. You can speak boldly only while Rama is out of sight. I could reduce you to ashes myself by utilizing my mystic power, but I refrain from doing so because I have not received such an order from Rama. You are a fool, for it is impossible to kidnap the wife of Lord Rama. You have only been able to do so because this is the device Providence has chosen to have me as the instrumental cause of your death. Struck by this,
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So thank you so much for reading up till here.
Thank you.
Now would I request maybe Shubhankar Prabhu, if you can read, I'll give you the access. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Can you read from by struck these by these sharp words? Do you have a good network connection and a mic? Hare Krishna. I think the bandwidth is not working fine there. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Shubhankar Prabhu. Can you read it? Okay. Maybe I can read it then. Okay. Struck by these sharp words, Ravana hissed like a serpent and gazed at Sita with angry, bloodshot eyes. I will kill you this very day. Ravana bellowed, Then, addressing the Rakshasis who guarded Sita, he said, "You must make Sita submit to me by any means possible, whether conciliation, gifts, or force." Ravana turned menacingly towards Sita, and it appeared he might suddenly become violent. However, Mandodari, who had come with Ravana's youngest consort, Dhanyamalini, embraced her husband, saying, "Come back to your palace and enjoy with us. Forget about this pale, emaciated Sita. When a man desires to enjoy a woman who does not love him, he only suffers. However, when the woman loves him in return, he enjoys extreme delight." Ravana was thus dissuaded from further abusing Sita. Laughing conceitedly, he returned to his palace. The hideous Rakshasi guards then approached Sita and began to threaten her in harsh, angry voices. One Rakshasi said, "You should give up your false pride and accept Ravana, for he is a very exalted personality. You should know that one of Lord Brahma's mentally conceived sons was Pulastya, whose mentally conceived son was Vishrava Rishi, whose son is Ravana. Do not hesitate to accept the king of the Rakshasas, thinking him unworthy of you. If you remain adamant, it will certainly result in your destruction." Another Rakshasi said, "You are a fool for refusing to become Ravana's queen. Don't you know that don't you know that at his command the trees scatter flowers and the clouds release torrents of rain? The sun does not shine and the wind refuses to blow if they displease Ravana. O sweet smiling goddess, listen to our advice, or else face a horrible death." Sita, however, calmly replied, "You can devour me if you like. I shall never submit to Ravana." Finding Sita unbending, the Rakshasas picked up spears, axes, and knives, threatening Sita as they circled around her. One shouted, "You are young, soft, and tender. I shall devour your heart, liver, and spleen this very moment if you do not submit to Ravana." Others exclaimed, "I shall eat up your rosy red cheeks. I will sever your succulent thighs. I'll drink your hot blood." Then another Rakshasi interrupted, "I hate squabbling. Let's chop her up and divide her into equal morsels. Order wine to be brought. Let us feast upon her flesh and dance before the goddess Bhadrakali." Sita could no longer bear their ghastly remarks and burst into tears. Trembling violently with fear, she cried out, "O Rama, O Lakshmana." Sita lamented, "Why doesn't Rama come here to save me? Perhaps he does not know where I am. Maybe he has already died from feelings of separation and is now residing in heaven. Perhaps Ravana was somehow able to kill him by means of some sinister trick. Oh, when will Rama come to take me back to Ayodhya after destroying all these Rakshasas? Why am I so unfortunate that I cannot give up my life at once? If only I could die, for death would surely be better than this unbearable misery." While the Rakshasis were attempting to intimidate Sita, one elderly woman named Trijata suddenly awoke from a deep slumber. Trijata approached the other Rakshasis and prudently spoke as follows: "You wretches, how can you dare torment Sita like this? You shall never be able to devour her. I shall now tell you why. I have just had an incredibly vivid dream wherein I saw Rama come here to rescue Sita and slaying all the Rakshasas." When the other Rakshasis begged her to describe her dream in detail, Trijata continued, "I saw Rama and Lakshmana dressed all in white and wearing white garlands. They were soaring through the air in a white celestial chariot drawn by 1,000 white horses. Then the scene changed, and I saw Rama seated upon a gigantic four tusked elephant, dressed all in white. Sita too was dressed in white and was standing upon a white mountain in the middle of the sea. When Rama came nearby, Sita mounted the elephant and became reunited with her beloved husband. After this, I saw Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana flying through the air toward the north in the Pushpak chariot. I then saw Ravana in my dream with a shaved head, his body smeared with red sandalwood paste. He was riding in a chariot drawn by asses, drinking oil, and laughing as though mentally deranged. As the chariots roared off, I saw Ravana disappear into a gloomy hell filled with filthy things that emitted a foul odor. I saw Kumbhakarna and the sons of Ravana in the same way, but not Vibhishana. Vibhishana was mounted upon a four-tusked elephant, covered by a white canopy, and was heralded by conch and kettle drums. Finally, I saw the whole of Lanka crumble and fall into the sea. I have concluded that very soon Rama will come and recover Sita after slaying the Rakshasas. You must now give up tormenting Sita and beg for her forgiveness. Meanwhile, auspicious signs appeared in the irreproachable body of Sita, like servants eager to wait upon a wealthy man. Her lotus like eyes began to twitch, and her left arm gently throbbed. Sita's graceful left thigh also quivered as if Rama herself was standing before her. Noticing all this, Trijata declared, because of these auspicious signs, I can understand that Sita will soon receive some very good news. Hearing this, Sita became elated and said, if all that you have described comes true, then I will make certain you are afforded all protection from the wrath of my husband. Hare Krishna. So we will stop here. And before stopping, if devotees they have any questions or clarifications, they can put in the questions tab, or they can have the access to speak. Okay, I think there are no questions for today. Okay, so we will end this session here and we'll continue reading tomorrow from page 295. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे।